What was your dream then?
I didn't have a dream.
You said, I can't remember what you said. What was it about?
I didn't have a dream. I woke up with the words in my head.
What were the words?
Call every man a liar and call God the truth.
What does that mean?
Well, it means call every man a liar and call God the truth. And then the words came to me. There is no one good but him. And then more scripture came to me, and it was about the laws of the flesh and man being a liar because he's of the flesh, and God being the truth because he's the only truth. And then I thought, well, what did God do? What did the Father Yahuwah do? He written with his own hand the Ten Commandments, and it was a spiritual law. As Paul said, we shall worship in spirit and in truth. And worshipping in spirit and in truth is to keep his covenant. That's how you worship and how you walk in the spirit. And it says that Moses never gave the bread of life, but Messiah did. Well, Messiah refreshed the covenant of promise. And he gave us the chance again to walk in spirit and truth and to walk in the ways. And as Paul says, just as the spirit, just as the flesh always fights against the spirit, as it so is today. And one cannot be with the other. So it calls every man a liar, and only Yahuwah is true. So what men have said doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. We need to walk in righteousness, in our own uprightness, and that's keeping the covenant of promise.
How do you keep the covenant of promise?
By keeping his commandments. By walking in the spirit. By putting on Messiah. And how you put on Messiah is to keep his covenant, to keep his 10 commandments, and to love Yah with all your heart, and love your brother like yourself, by keeping the royal law and washing the blood off your hands. Clean hands and a pure heart.
Does that mean looking for the lost sheep?
Yeah, that's exactly what it
And
means.
who are the lost sheep?
The lost sheep are the scattered ones among the nations. You know? He's not going to come back until the fullness of the Gentiles are brought in. Until the whole of Israel is gathered up. And Israel now is whoever does his covenant of promise. You know, it's not a bloodline. It's not a, you know. The bloodline is you're grafted onto the tree. If you fulfill his covenant, you're grafted onto the tree. And if you're from Israel, he says, how much more greater is it for a branch to be grafted back onto its own tree? So, at the moment, you see everyone's cut off. Everyone's cut off. This is why we shouldn't be celebrating, because you've been cut off from the tree. Right? Everyone's been cut off. So what we need to do is we need to go and find all the branches and graft them back onto the tree. And then when Messiah returns, that's when we celebrate. And that's the marriage feast.
Sounds really good.
And like he said, I shall not drink of this cup until you sit with me in my Father's kingdom. You know, at the table, in the inner courts where Yahuwah resides, and we'll sit there, and then we'll feast together. At the moment, we need to clean our hands, purify our hearts, and go and find Israel.
Where is Israel?
Because, well, we walk in the spirit now. Israel is a spiritual thing. You know, like Israel now. I mean, the Jews are in Israel. Israel is not in Israel. Israel are the 10 scattered tribes among the nations of the Gentiles. Because they were committing idolatry so bad that Father himself scattered them amongst the nations. But because he keeps his promises to Abraham, he's give us a chance in the last days. And it's going to wake up the seed of Jacob, who's going to go to every place, all across, even to the Northern Isles, to go and gather up his flock. Wake up a seed who shall serve him for one generation. And this is the work we need to be doing now, and it's all over the scripture. I mean, it's quite evident that we should not be celebrating now.
Yeah, because it does
It's
say.
not a time to celebrate.
No.
This is a time of mourning. This is a time of, we should rejoice in the fact that the covenant's been renewed,
Yeah.
you know, and remember the feast days and remember those great times of the past and how amazing Israel was.
And being mourning.
And the Jews that are sat there, you know, like they're the synagogue of Satan. They call themselves Jews and they are not Jews, you know.
Mm. Wow. Like in Psalms 1, I think it's 137, is it? 136, where it says, that by the rivers of Babylon, where we lay down, we hung up our harps and our cymbals and our myrrh.
We laid them low.
We laid them low.
Why is that? Because they were captive in Babylon. How can we sing a love song in a stranger's land?
Yeah.
A love song to the Father. They couldn't do it when they were in a profane land.
Yeah.
Just like Daniel couldn't do it when he was in a profane land, and just like they all couldn't do it. You know, you read and they're all. What does Jeremiah say? I shall turn your feast days into lamentation and woe. Why do you think he's saying that? Because Zion's no more.
Well, Psalms 23. Father is our shepherd, we shall not want. He makes us lie down by still waters,
Green pastures.
green pastures. What are the pastures?
The pastures are where all the sheep live.
And the
It's
shepherd.
down to us to be the shepherds. That's why in Songs of Solomon he says your bed is green. And in Psalms 23 he says, he makes me lie down in green pastures beside still waters. What are the still waters? The still waters are the still nations. What's still waters? It's stagnant. It's putrid. You can't drink it. There's nothing happening. So what he's saying is, you lie down in the green pasture beside the still waters and you stir those waters up. You know, you shake them up and wake them up. Bring them home. You're the shepherd.
In Psalms 22.
Psalms 22, he said, a seed shall come for one generation. Come unto a people that shall be born. So this is a Psalm of David, and he's talking about the distant people in the future. And declare his righteousness. And his righteousness is the Ten Commandments. That he hath done this. And this thing that he did was refresh the covenant of promise. So that's the thing that he did. He fulfilled sacrificial law, got rid of it, got rid of the curse of that bondage, and he set the captives free. Giving us again the right to the covenant of promise, which is what most people just are not getting. And Jacob is that generation. A seed shall come for one generation unto a people that shall be born to declare his righteousness. It's talking about Jacob in the end times, trying to wake everybody up before he returns, trying to gather in the flock.
And the Bible is talking about all the time about the last days.
Then go on to Psalms 24 and he says, open up ye gates, you everlasting doors. Why? Because the seed of Jacob, the ones who wake up and do his work, they're nailed to the door. They're the ones keeping the key of David. They're the ones doing the covenant of promise, keeping his commandments, and going and looking for the lost sheep and fulfilling the royal law. That's why he calls you an everlasting door. It says if you do these things, you'll be nailed to the door, and no man shall go into that door, and no man shall shut it. You know, and only the prince goes into that door, right? But you're nailed to the door. You're nailed to him because he is the door. So you may enter into it and leave from it whenever you like, and no one can close it and no one can shut it because you're his servant.
And how do we tell people that are on the milk that don't really know the Bible that they should be doing these things? That they shouldn't be doing Christmas and Easter, and then telling the people that are in the Messianic movement that they are so adamant that they should be doing the feast, even though it's in black and white saying that, firstly, that we should be
Well,
doing it in the land.
let's go back to what we were talking about, like call every man a liar and call God the truth. Do you know what I mean? Call Yahuwah the truth. So what we have to do is, you see all the traditions of men, just throw them away, every single one of them, and let's go with what the Father wanted in the first place, which is to keep his covenant. That's all he ever wanted. He did not enjoy sacrifice. It says it in Isaiah. It says it all over. He says, I take no pleasure in your sacrifices. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like the sacrificial law. It's a fleshly law. It's a law of bondage given as a schoolmaster as a punishment because of our transgression. But everybody wants to hold on to this punishment for some reason. They love that. When he came and set the captives free, we don't need to do that anymore.
That's what Isaiah 61 was about. He said,
it says it in Isaiah, it says it everywhere. Like that, what do you think it means when he said he set us free from bondage?
this is the year of the, what's it?
What do you think that means? Who's he setting free, and what's the bondage they're in? The bondage is the sacrificial law. And Paul says you keep one part of the sacrificial law, like getting circumcised or doing the feast, then you're a debtor to keep the whole law, which no man's ever done. That's why Messiah came to do it for us and refresh the covenant of promise for us. Got rid of that schoolmaster, that bondage, and he set the captives free. But no one's getting it. No one's getting it. So if you want to be a debtor to the whole schoolmaster, the whole bondage, if you want to go back into bondage and choose Hagar instead of the ones that, are Sarah and
free woman,
be heirs to the covenant of promise, heirs like the sons of Abraham, then heirs according to the promise, it says. But if you don't choose the covenant and you keep on choosing the law of bondage, then you're a debtor to do the whole law. And you can't keep it. It's impossible. There's no tabernacle, there's no priesthood, there's no land. And you cannot keep the feasts outside the land, and guess what? There is no land. Israel's not even the land anymore. It will be once it's destroyed. Let's read Revelation. What's going to happen to Israel? There's not going to be one stone left upon another. Not one stone. Why is that? Because he's destroying the impurity so that New Jerusalem can come and be brought down from heaven and put right there in that place. He's not going to bring it down into the fornication that's going on over there. He's going to wipe it clean first with
there
fire.
is fornication. I went to a feast, and when I got to the reception, the girl said, are you here for fornication? And I said, I beg your pardon? She said, are you here for fornication? And I said, sorry? And she said, are you here for an occasion? But that was telling me that very moment, when she said that, I was just absolutely blown away. Father was speaking to us through a Scottish lady that was saying, are you here for an occasion? But it sounded like, are you here for fornication? She was speaking to us at that very moment when we were doing the feast. This is Vinny and Pip, Covenant Promise. Subscribe and like, and we'll speak to you soon.